It's been a long time since I presented and I forgot about the nuances of lovely cables all over the place. Feels like I'm in a hospital bed walking around. This picture quite nicely describes, Andrew gave an amazing introduction to his session where he spoke about 6 years ago, 2012 was when we both came up with this idea of it would be awesome if we could share our experiences with colleagues who are in similar positions, but more so than that, the little underlying current was this picture kind of explains my journey as I was an academic, a professional. I used to teach courses, tutoring courses, but I used to be a problem solver, similar to what Shohil and Ron and all the rest of them are doing now. I used to find quirky solutions for problems that existed where at the time Cecil couldn't provide a solution for. Or we had these really cool ideas of stuff we'd love to do, and that's my kind of decision tree. I had so many cool ideas that I wanted to do, and I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with it. Because of that, people like Andrew and myself, we set up a bit of a reputation for ourselves to be these guys that do these things. And so we used to get a lot of people who used to come to us and saying, hey, listen, you know those things that you're doing, we're in a similar bit of a position and we'd like to do stuff. And so 6 years ago, we started the Learn, Do, Share, and it was a great opportunity for us to virtually wipe the blackboard clean, start with a clean slate, and start from small, measurable tidbits of things that are tried and tested and proven. Instead of everybody going out and having to experiment themselves, I mean, it's really great to make mistakes and learn from them, but it's even better to learn from other people's mistakes to a certain degree. Especially when it comes to students in life courses. Risk is high, reward is not that great if you go wrong. So today I'm going to be talking about the Canvas UA Toolbox, a tool that we put in Canvas. But before I get to that, about me, I see a lot of faces that I recognize in here, but I see a lot that I don't as well. Who am I? Well, my name's Viril. I'm currently working for ITS, Central IT. I'm a guy that wears multiple hats. I'm the service owner, I'm the service manager for learning and teaching and innovation. I look after a lot of the enterprise learning and teaching apps that the university has in the little bag that it carries along. One of the biggest ones we have is Canvas. Specific to Canvas itself, I also run an Agile DevOps team, and it was really nice to see David White's session on Kanban boards. It's something that we know a lot about, and our to-do list is forever massive, and the things we're doing not so much, and the things we get out even less. And not to say that we don't do stuff, it just goes to show the community of users that we have within the university are so imaginative and so eager to get solutions for the stuff that they want to do. Our to-do list is forever growing and growing and growing, and we cannot just get things out fast enough. And so I see that as a great opportunity as well, because we've always got stuff to build. So while I manage a DevOps team, some of my staff are here as well, answer the calls for Canvas and help along. I've also got a bit of other things that I do. Anyway, enough about me. What I'm going to be doing today is a quick fire. I'm going to show you the top 10 tools that we've released in Toolbox in hopefully less than 20 minutes, much less than 20 minutes. Take some questions at the end. I know the theme through the sessions today have been assessments and marking, and so I'm going to start off with a lot of the tools that we have that assist in those areas. The role that I see my team playing and our area at large is somewhat of a gap filler. Canvas does an amazing job at what it does, and it does what it does reasonably well. Our history has come from Cecil in the days we've been, how many Sally might know, 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, a long time, a really long time of Cecil. And the really nice thing about having a homegrown solution in the institution is it evolves around its users, evolves around its pedagogy of teaching and nuances of how we do things. Canvas is awesome, but it's American. So it also does things the American way. And so there's things that are slightly quirky, things that we could be like, why did you think of that? And so that's where my team comes in, and we kind of play the role of gap fillers, connect the dots and try and make things more context specific to our area of operation. So I'm going to show the top 10. For those of you who are interested, I'm not going to make this presentation at all technical, but on the right-hand side, I've got a bit of a key going on. So as I go through the different tools in the key, I'm going to be talking through some of the different solutions that we've used to build the tools that we have. For those of you who are not interested in that, just ignore it. Toolbox. So UA Toolbox, it's a plugin that we can put into Canvas where we can push 3 general types of tools, you could say. At the moment, we're kind of focusing around a reports basket, a utility and tools basket, and quirky problem solvers type of things. Toolbox presents itself in Canvas in one of two ways. Some of the people in this room are faculty admins, so GSAs, GSMs, operational staff behind the scenes, behind courses, the backbone of stuff. So this is the UA Toolbox at the account level. I'm not going to show you too much in there because there's not much in there for assessments, but the generic stuff in there, there's a bunch of reports and utilities. Just for those of you who are in the room though, this is one we just launched last week. The course roll-up tool, absolutely amazing for prepping for semester. So as semester's coming in, any faculty admin, department level, school level, faculty level can come in and do things like, show me all my courses that have students in them, but there's no teachers in the courses yet. Or show me all courses that have students in them and the course coordinator is not there. Or show me courses that have teachers in them, but there's no students. Or whatever the scenario may be, but it's really cool to 2 weeks before semester, 3 weeks before semester, start chasing things up to be like, hey, students are going to be expecting to see someone in there, but when they get there, there's going to be an empty course. Or basic things like the courses haven't been published yet and lectures have started and things like that. This one here is the course-facing toolbox, and this is where all the richness of stuff that you guys most likely will be using, or would like to use, I would hope, exists. So we've got 3 larger baskets: reports, assignments, and utilities. There was a question that came up earlier, I think it was Joe or someone, around alternate solutions to CrowdMark, and that's kind of in the assignment section, which I will be showing today. And that kind of sets itself as a minimum presence to give a relatively similar solution to CrowdMark, in that it's a workflow for paper-based into digital for online marking and feedback. On the top section, we've got reports, down the bottom, utilities. I know we've got another session coming up around analytics, so that's going to be tying quite nicely to the stuff on the top. The reports, we've got student access. There's a whole heap of information in there. The student access shows what your students are doing in your course, exports it out as a Excel file that you can then slice and dice, pivot tables, do whatever you want, but it tells you things like, are students looking at my resources? Are they looking at which resources? When was the last time they came into the course? Have they actually come into the course? How are they looking at my announcements? All those sort of questions, the data's in there. And so it's quite helpful for people who want to kind of explore effectiveness of what they're putting into their course. Or more so, are students actually engaging with the stuff I'm putting in the course? Student list, that's more for like tutorials. If you're on a flat list of who's in my tutorial, who's in my class, what are their email addresses, all the quirky things that come around there, that's the place to go. Soon we'll be launching photos in there as well, so it's going to be awesome for attendance lists in classes. You can see faces to people. Rubrics analytics, I heard whispers that it was shown this morning. I missed the first few sessions. So I will be showing it again, hopefully not the same stuff. I'll be showing some new things, potentially. That's a really amazing tool for marking, and I'll show you why just after this. Assignments, we've got booklet generation, and then down the bottom, I'll show you the biggest one, which I think is going to be awesome, is when this thing decides to work, rubric grading by question. So, rubric analytics. The reason why I say beta is we're constantly adding heaps of new features into there. So how this works is generically across any assignment in Canvas that's using a rubric, as long as you've configured a rubric, you can come to this tool, and it goes through and looks at all the data within that rubric as grading's progressing, after grading's finished, and it's got a few elements that are extremely important, which I think would have been so helpful to me when I was teaching. The things that are there is on the right-hand side. This is more the administrator in me when I used to manage markers, completion rates by criterias in a rubric. And that's pretty much just saying for every student that has a submission, not every student in the class, every student that has a submission, how many of them actually have that rubric criteria cell completed? You will be amazed. I've been doing some analytics back on previous course offerings. It is so hard to manage this, especially at scale. Think hundreds, close to thousands of students in a class. It's so easy for a marker to, while they're going through in error, human error, whatever, going through quickly, not tick one of the criteria cells and just carry on progressing. And if students are not paying proactive attention to the feedback that's coming back, they lose marks because one of those things haven't been filled in. We've gone through, and on most assignments, you'll see there's at least like 1 or 2 students that are missing 1 or 2 boxes in a very large course. Students generally will come back and say, hey, listen, hey, look at my feedback, and I didn't get 10 marks because you didn't mark that part. But that aside, this completion rate comes back and shows you of all the submissions, how far are you? So in terms of a benchmark, as grading's going on, you'll see the bar track along, you'll see the percentage. Once you're at 100%, you're like, awesome. It's really nice when you're doing split marking. So if you've got different markers marking different elements of questions, you can come and kind of see progression through as well as they're going along. The other thing that this is really awesome for, Canvas gives analytics at an assignment level. The max, the mean, this is how your students did, but not at the rubric level. So at the rubric level, we can identify things like gaps. So while across the board, you'll say the overall, it's there somewhere, 78%, class average is 78%. They did reasonably well, B plus-ish, kinda. But then you can come in and do deep dives to say, well, actually, for this criteria, value measure and KPI, whatever that means, there's a bit of a hump. I can see a smile because someone knows whose rubric this is. There's a bit of a hump there to show deficiencies in certain areas. So when you're targeting your feedback back to students as a whole, not individualized feedback, but as a whole, so post-assessment, if you're doing a small feedback session or a little video or an announcement or whatever it is you're putting back to your students, you can at least target in certain areas. So you can see areas where they're doing really well. Group questions down the bottom, like pretty much everybody got full marks for that one. But areas where people are not doing quite well, and those are harder to see when you're looking at the forest of the assignment. The one thing that we're going to be releasing really soon, there's a little drop-down arrow, which is new. The drop-down arrow is going to allow you to do segmentation by marker. So we can come back in, and when it is group marker, you'll see the same stats, presented slightly differently, so it's easier to read, but we can start seeing distribution by marker. That's super important, especially for large courses, earlier on in the piece. The admin overhead of having to go through if you've got 20 markers, and after they've marked 1,000 assignments, you realize, well, one of you were just well too lenient, or one of you just didn't get the thing quite right, and you're too hard, and things like that. It's easier to come back into this as marking's progressing. Let's say 10% into marking, you can kind of have a bit of a look. Obviously assuming random distribution of the scripts that are going through, but you can kind of get a gut feel. And so I'm not talking about making sure they're all within the 1% of each other, but you can see the outliers, which is really helpful. So that's rubric analytics. There's a lot of other things going to be coming soon. The next one in there, which is the hot topic at the moment, paper-based assessment. Within Toolbox, we've got two individual tools that have been put in there. One's the tool wizard-based approach to creating paper-based, the books pretty much for paper-based assessment. So similar to what Alan was talking about, the QR codes, all the magic bits that are on the pages to make them identifiable. This is what it all does. Examinations have been using the similar backend for a while now, almost 2 years. Examinations templates are 4-page booklet, 10-page booklet, 20-page booklet, and they're all just generic lines. This one's a lot more smarter. This is a bring your own booklet. So similar to how CrowdMark works, you come with a PDF. There's some rules around, a little bit simpler than CrowdMark. There's some rules around, make sure you have a, don't quote me on this, I should have looked it up, 2-inch footer and a 1-inch header where there's blank space. There's a guide in there which tells you, but pretty much you bring your Q&A booklet in, this thing will go around and stamp it for you. There's a button down the bottom of preview one booklet or generate all the booklets to take to the printer. We've done a lot of hard work with the printers to make sure that the stuff that comes out of here is compatible for printing. So you just take the file that comes out, go to the printers and say, split every 40 pages, they'll staple it, bind it, do all the usual stuff. And the cost of printing has dropped significantly because we're prepping the files as they need it. Whereas some of the other ones, there was a lot of extra work that the printers did and they charged extra for it. This is what a preview of one of the files cover sheets look like, and that's where a lot of the magic is happening. The cover sheet has the generic examinations, tests, there's versions of them, instructions, but there's a bubble sheet where students go in and fill in their ID number. The booklets are all unique. There's a QR code that identifies the booklet, and there's a lot of smarts behind the scenes. So while you're doing your scanning, mixed batches, I drop them down, put it in any order. My script into someone else's scanner really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it all comes back to one digital booklet. There's analytics behind the scenes as well, telling you where it didn't come back to one booklet. Hey, listen, this student's missing a page. And it's not as small as you think it is. In the last years we've been doing exams, there are so many students that just take a ruler down the spine and rip off a sheet and say, that's my notes. They walk off with it, and then the validation comes back saying, hey, 5 students are missing 3 pages. How? So yeah, there's a lot of smarts behind the scenes. That's the first part of the 3-step process. The first part is generating your booklets. The second one is processing your booklets. So you can come in here, and it's a self-service tool. Pretty much come in, upload your file. When you upload your file, it gives you statuses as it processes the file. The different colors of the squares mean different things. In this case, every box is a script. If it's missing a page, it's a certain color. If it's not ready yet, it's a certain color. All these ones are saying the IDs are not correct, but that's just me because I was lazy and I put a whole bunch in that had no bubbles filled in. If you were to click on any one of those, it gives you a little snapshot of where the bubble region is. And it does a bit of a smart autofill on the side. So it's only showing your students in your class. You look at the bubbles on the side, you only have to start typing a number, name, whatever's written on there. So if it's John, you go J-O, it'll already find John. Or if it's an ID number that's 435, you do 4-3, it's already limited down to that as well. It is smart in how it's processing the bubbles as well. It's processing the bubbles against enrollments in your class. So on the validation screen, it's telling you, hey, we got a script from a person who claims to be he's in your class, but he's not in your class, or the opposite. We go on that someone who's in your class, and it's missing pages, or whatever it may be. It's all tracked quite nicely. And the last step in this process is send all those files into SpeedGrader. So the first step was create it, process it, and finally send it into SpeedGrader for marking. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Rubric grading by question is what I would hope is an awesome tool for staff to use. This is completely independent of the paper-based stuff. It works for the paper-based stuff, but we've made it in a way that it's open to any assessment that's got rubrics in Canvas. You can come to this tool. Essentially how it works, up on the top, you select any assignment that has a rubric. There's a little settings cogwheel which gives you this table. That table is a generic Canvas rubric that's been presented slightly more clean. And the little orange lines are the criteria in a rubric. You can create as many question groups as you want. Call them whatever makes sense in your context. They're just little buckets to group criteria together. In this case, the example, I've got question 1, 2, 3, 4. And my criteria in a rubric is broken up into elements of question 1, 2, 3, 4. This was one of the hardest things to try and sell to Canvas, to say, hey, listen, our assignment's coming in. It's not one rubric, one question type thing. If we're going to assign with 10 questions, we can't just use one. It doesn't quite scale well. This allows you to do that. Use the one generic rubric with sectioned criteria, slice and dice it in here. Once you've set it up, what it gives you is, it looks like a really tiny course, but I've got 2 text box text to say, hide all the assignments I've graded, and hide students that have no submissions. Each one of these cells in the squares, so there's a question 1 group, 2, 3, 4, those cells are individual students. They're color-coded. If they're partially graded, fully graded, all of these are not graded. So that's kind of doing real-time. Markers can come in and see how far am I through. So if I've got a marker doing question 1 only, start of exam, class of 100, I'll see 100 squares there. As I'm whacking through them, the 100 will crawl slowly, slowly lower until I know I'm all done. You click on any one of these. This is where the SpeedGrader thing comes in. SpeedGrader, most of you would have seen it. Standard SpeedGrader, that's an example of a script that's been scanned through this process. It just happens to be an examination script, so there's no fanciness of Q&A booklet or anything. It's a simple rule sheet of paper. But on the right-hand side, it looks different now, because what's changed is we've got the section in there, which is now what we set up before, the groupings in a rubric. It's presenting those groupings to us. So at the moment, I've launched, if I clicked question 1, I've gone to that student particular in question 1, and the rubric is only showing me the question 1 cells of the criteria. Similarly, in that drop-down box, I can change to question 2, rubric snaps to question 2, question 3, question 4. You kind of get the idea. The beta feature I showed in rubric analytics is where this thing pipes to. So as markers are marking through, Canvas only tracks the last person who touched the assignment, whereas this is tracking the last person who touched that group of question. The other thing that's pretty cool in there, we've added this thing, go to next ungraded student. So our hope is you come to that first tool that had the big grid. You only need to go there once to pretty much jump into I'm marking question 1, not expecting somebody to go back there for every student. So once you're in here, you just click go to next ungraded student, go to next ungraded student. And there's smarts behind that for collision detection, multiple markers marking the same question. It'll make sure it doesn't assign the same student to 2 people. But it's also got smarts as you get towards the end of marking. There's only 5 scripts left. 10 markers are vying for them. It's got some smarts around, okay, well, 1 marker's been sitting on this thing for a day and really hasn't done anything. Okay, reallocate it to somebody else. That sort of stuff. That kind of covers the solutions we have around digital marking, paper-based assessment, bringing it into digital marking. A lot of the stuff is Canvas, SpeedGrader native. It's all the stuff built into Canvas. We just added a bit of value add things into it to make it a bit more usable. The other few I'm going to show really quickly, just as a quick mention. I know there was questions that came up about paper-based. I know there's the long tail that we're kind of dragging along, say, come to digital. There's still people that are using paper. We've got a solution in Toolbox for cover sheets. Kind of helps student centers manage the collection. So students can come in, there's templates in there. Students will go in and say, hey, this is my assignment. I fill in a whole lot of fields and it gives you the generic template and fills it out that student centers can automatically process with QR codes. Makes it a lot more simple to do streamlined processing of the paper-based stuff. We're trying to transition as many people as we can away from this because there's nothing, absolutely nothing on these cover sheets, which is not already in Canvas. By virtue of the student making a submission to their assignment, everything you're tracking here, you already know. Who they are, which tutorial they belong to, who their teacher is, all the rest of that stuff is there. So we're working on it. We'll get there eventually. This one here is another awesome one. Reason why I bring it up, not every assignment is suitable for marking in Canvas, in SpeedGrader. David's a great example. If you're doing coding, or comsci, or statistical modeling, or special software type files, all those sort of things, Canvas makes a great Dropbox to a mechanism to collect files, but you can't really do much with it once you're in Canvas because Canvas is PDFs, Word docs, the usual kind of documents. This is a tool we put into Canvas that allows you to go to any assignment, do a bulk downloader of all the assignment submissions, but in a meaningful way. If you go and click bulk download in Canvas as it is now, it gives you a generic Canvas ID, file name, John Smith, and I've got 10 John Smiths in my class. It's awesome, not really. This one allows you to do click and drag between a whole lot of fields. So you could just name the file in something that makes sense to you. So when you get the files down, you've got something that's identifiable for marking. The last two that I'm going to quickly go through, final grade submission LTI. That's the final grades tool that we got in Canvas. There's been a big change this semester. You don't need to unmute when you're preparing your grades anymore. You only need to unmute right at the end when you submit my grades, which is awesome because it means you can use the generic reports in there for your examiners meeting and your HODS meetings and all the rest of that stuff. But the final grades tool at a high level allows you to come in and set rules like did not sit, must pass, all those sort of criteria-based rules that are not natively embedded within Canvas to match whatever you've put up in your course outline of this is what you need to do to pass the course. This is what the course summary sheet looks like. When you click print, it'll give you a nice pretty PDF, but these are normalized data sets that are comparable. So when you go to examiners meeting, everybody's talking to the same sheet of paper. It shows you distribution, a graph, it gives you a little breakdown of how many in which section, ABCs, top students, bottom students, and it kind of summarizes all of that quite nicely for you. The thing that we're continuously adding into is this checklist. Canvas is awesome, but it also allows some really silly things if you ask me. I've seen so many courses that have assignments that are worth 30 points, data entry error. I'm giving them 15, but instead, 15.5, instead of 15.5, I put 155. Magically, the student became an A student because Canvas allows you to give marks that are higher than what it's allowed and things like that. So this is where the checklist comes in. It tells you things where there's assignments that are worth something that doesn't seem right, it's too high. It's not stopping you from something, it's just giving you cautionary, something doesn't look right, something looks fishy. Or you've got an assignment that's worth 100% of the course, 100% of the course grade. Various different things that are in there. Or you've got assignments where students got marks greater than what the maximum is supposed to be. Or the final mark for a student is greater than 100. There's one or two that are in there that won't let you pass. You may not pass go. And all the rest of them are just information-y. Are you sure you want to do this? Knowing the, yep, sure. And the last one that I got in there, course default settings. This is coming into effect from 2019. It allows us to, as an institution, start doing default settings in courses, because the courses, as you get into them, have all the normal American stuff in there. The biggest one is the grade scale set for the course. The university has an official one, but when you get into your course, the official one's not set. People who don't pay attention to such things only realize at the end of the semester when they're finalizing their grades, and students get really confused when you go and change it on them. They're like, it was saying I'm at B, but now I'm a C. What's going on? So these default settings allow us to kind of set up the course in a way that it's more pre-set up, ideally, for how you're going to operate. Hopefully, those are the 10 that I had. Hopefully, those 10 have given you some inspiration on how you could use them, potentially, but more so. Got the creative juices flowing to be, hey, there's something else that I could really use that'll make a huge difference in how I'm doing things. My to-do list in our Kanban boards is forever growing. I'd love to see more things in there. So if you've got ideas, do let us know. Other than that, question time. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
With the QR coded assessments, where are you storing that data? Is it stored on the cloud? And how sophisticated is the system in terms of downloading it? Because one of the things with commercial law, I want to be able to legibly read the students' writing, and sometimes they highlight things. So I want high resolution scan. I want it in color.
Yep.
I mean, CrowdMark has now become very good at downloading, prioritizing that the pages of that particular question that I'm marking now comes in strips. I can start marking the first few lines of it as it's getting the rest in.
Yep.
And I mean, a few years ago, it wasn't anywhere near as fast. And that speed is really, really important because you can't be waiting for that to come through. It has to be there.
Yep. So a couple of points to your questions. The first one is, where is it? It's definitely all in the cloud. It's actually all stored in SpeedGrader native. So that's Amazon Web Services behind the scenes. So it's cloud, it's secure, it's safe. All the submissions are treated as matter of record. So once it's in there, nobody, including myself, if I wanted to go in as Big Brother and try to move it, I can't. It's a matter of record. It's there permanently. So if we made a mistake putting the file up, it's missing a page, we can put another file up that's got the missing page, but we can't change what was there before, which I think is a really good thing to have because it's got an audit trail and you can see everything in there. So it's in the cloud, it's secure. In terms of the quality of the file, the scan resolution is exactly the same and can be higher as what CrowdMark is doing because natively, we're the ones, like the user or the exam center, we're the ones doing the scanning and we define what the resolution is. The systems will support absolutely anything. I mean, you can go crazy with the file size if you do a really big scan. It'll allow it. It just means things will run a bit slower, but it'll allow it. And the last question you had was around, I think, presenting question at a time. Yes? So currently, the mark by question allows you to do rubric to a question and jump to that, but it doesn't allow jumping to a point in the page automatically. That's something we're working with in Structure, the makers of CrowdMark, makers of Canvas, with to hopefully get out soon because they need to add some stuff into SpeedGrader to allow us to deep link. Say if I click this student question 1, the page also needs to start to question 1 at the same time, just to kind of help with that. Yeah. Any other questions? Hey.
Non-CrowdMark.
Yeah.
You know my thoughts. Is there any plan to replace question mark?
Most definitely. What we've been working, we haven't done too much publicity about it, but what we've been working on heavily behind the scenes is a pathway of migrating question mark banks, question repositories, assessment, all that into native Canvas quizzes, because that's going to be the deal breaker. I know there's lots of courses, a lot of faculties and departments have spent so much effort and resource in maintaining a lovely question bank, and you want to put it under them and be like, oh, you're going to have to do that again. So we've been putting a lot of effort, and actually just last week we've validated 100% we can do a full translation of everything through into Canvas. So we're working through that, and yes, the scanning solution I showed, we've already got a template for MCQ bubbles. It does scan really nicely. It's got some AI behind the scenes doing some smart stuff, but definitely on the roadmap and potentially next year around this time or sooner. We'll see it such that the final solution hopefully will be Canvas native quizzes, send to print, student bubble themselves. The submission scan will put it back as a virtual submission into the quiz, and it's Canvas native after that. The feedback in the quiz, everything, richness in the quiz is as if it's a normal quiz. Yep.
Just a quick question. Do you know if Canvas allows uploading comments when I'm uploading the file with marks? Can I upload comments as well?
It allows something. The reason why I say something is when you go into SpeedGrader, there's comments just about everywhere. There's annotations on the document, there's comments under the rubric, and there's comments in the rubric. So the easy answer is yes, it does. I will have to go back and I'll get maybe one of the team to let you know. One of them will be full. So you can do a bulk download of all the files, annotate, do whatever you want on it. You can re-upload it and it puts it in as comments in one of those 3 fields. I'll check which one it is and I'll let you know. So that's if you're doing grading outside SpeedGrader, but they want to bring the stuff back in for students to see. Yes, you can. Yeah. Joe.
Last one, maybe?
Yep.
I have 2 parts of the question. First one is I'll re-ask that question. I see that what you've shown has captured a lot of features that CrowdMark is currently doing.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of CrowdMark. I guess my question is more of a bigger, wider thing. So why are we creating something that has a lot of the features
Yep.
that CrowdMark's already got?
Yep.
It's basically us as end user, is it therefore we're migrating from a working system to another new system that has
Yep.
the same with a little bit more.
Yep, that's fine. And your second question?
Second question is on your final grading tool that you
Yep,
Is that this semester?
it's already done. You can do it now.
But was it last semester?
No. Yeah.
Where was the map?
Yeah. Yep. So coming back to your first two questions, yes, there's a lot of feature parity around CrowdMark and the tool that we have. Underlying behind the scenes is more around providing a minimum presence that's affordable for the masses. So yes, CrowdMark is amazing, and hand on heart, I think it's an amazing solution, but it costs as well. And so for those who can, by all means, continue doing it. If you've got the means to, go ahead. This is more providing a more scalable solution that's readily accessible to everybody. So there may not be every department, every course, every faculty that has the ability to get to CrowdMark, because it has been site licensed up till now. Whether it will be continued to be site licensed moving forward, I don't know. I won't speculate. But that aside, yeah, it's just giving a minimum presence that's available for everybody, because obviously the solution that we're providing is free. Courses can use everything in Canvas as they want. And it also tries to align somewhat, bringing things into SpeedGrader to bring the marker to something they're familiar with. Assuming they're already in SpeedGrader and they're doing things in there, it kind of brings the whole jump into digital in a place you're familiar as well. So yeah, I hope that answers those questions. Yeah. Cool.